I love it. I live for the drama. Do I really love Romantasy? Sometimes I question myself because I'll give you another year. If it doesn't come out this year, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is my first video on my booktube. This page is going to be all about my books, my reading, everything that I'm loving, everything that I'm hating, what I recommend, what I don't, hopefully some reading vlogs as well. But I thought there's no better way to start off this channel than talking about my favorite books. It should hopefully help you get to know my reading tastes. I mainly read fantasy, romance and romantasy. Occasionally I love a lit fic, but very occasionally, as in not often at all. So let's just go ahead and get into my favorite books. So I've broken them up into genres and we're going to start with romance. And we're going to start with my favorite author, Abby Jimenez. These are two of my favorite romance books. I mean, look at the annotations. I absolutely love Justin and Emma. All of Abby Jimenez's men are, if they want to, they would, and they absolutely do. I did enjoy Part of Your World, which is the first book in this series. They're like standalone series, so you can interconnected series, so you can read them alone, but you get the most out of it if you read them in order. So you do have to read Part of Your World first, and I did enjoy that book. I think I gave it 4 stars, but these two are both 5 stars and 6 stars. Justin and Emma, they just have this chemistry and this banter that I absolutely live for. So they both are cursed, which is such a funny way to like have a meet cute. Whoever they date go on to date their future wife or husband. So they're trying to break the curse by dating each other because they're hoping it will cancel out their curse, and then whoever they date next will be the one. So yeah, Abby Jimenez, hands down. And what I also love about her books is her characters go through some real life stuff. Like Brianna is divorced, her husband cheated on her, so she's finding it hard to trust men. Jacob obviously has anxiety, so he's dealing with that. Justin and Emma are going through some serious stuff. Emma's having problems with her mum, and Justin is having problems with his mum, but he's taking on a lot of responsibility because of his mum. Magnolia Parks is also one of my favorite series. Like, just Magnolia Parks though, I'm not really a Daisy Hates type of girly. It's a bit too mafia for me. Daisy Hates probably is like a 4-star read to me, but Magnolia Parks, once again, 6-star series. I love the toxicity of BJ and Magnolia. The book that I'm going to talk about next, you'll know what I mean when I say toxic. I love messy, I love drama. I mean, it's like watching a reality TV show but in a book, and I absolutely love it. So if you haven't heard of Magnolia Parks, it basically follows Magnolia Parks and her boyfriend BJ. At the start of the book, you find out that BJ cheated on her and now they're not dating, but they're still very close friends that basically go out of their way to make the other one jealous. So BJ's constantly sleeping with other girls because they're technically not together, and Magnolia's always dating other boys that she really has no interest in, but she dates them to piss BJ off. Speaking of drama and toxicity, the favorites. Now this is a new release. It literally came out January this month, so not a lot of people will know what I'm talking about when I talk about the drama in this book, but if you have read this book, you will know how dramatic and intense this story is. So this follows Katerina and Heath, who have been friends since childhood, but they are ice skaters, ice dancers, so they ice skate together. It's always been Katerina's ambition to go to the Olympics and win gold, and Heath is just there because he loves her. Basically, he's not really interested in the fame or the Olympics, but he's there because that's her dream. They are kind of trauma bonded because they went through a lot when they were kids. They're just like Magnolia and BJ, they just cannot get it together. Like, they're constantly having issues, they're breaking up, they're getting back together, they're friends, they're not, they're, you know, it's back and forth. So once again, if you don't like drama in your books, this will not be for you, but I love it. I live for the drama. When I was reading it, I forgot that I was reading because it was playing out like a documentary. So in this book, you have chapters that are interview style. Like, so the whole premise of this book is basically they're making a documentary on Katerina and Heath, so they're interviewing different people that knew them at the time that they were at the height of fame, and then you're getting chapters from Katerina's POV and she's telling you exactly what was happening at that time rather than all the speculation that's going on. And it's just so interesting the way these chapters end. It just keeps you gripped. I literally blew through this book in like 24 hours because I needed to know what happened. They'd always end the chapter on, well, you know what happened next, or oh, I can't comment on that because you know what happened, and you're like, no, I don't know what happened. What happened? Tell me what happened. And last but not least, for romance, I have Actual Age Eve Brown. Now I do have so many other more like romances that I love, but these are the ones that just are 6 stars, top tier for me, that I can just talk about forever, if you couldn't tell. This is another one. This is the ultimate rom-com for me. Abby Jimenez is more serious. It deals with, you know, deeper topics, but this, it deals with a topic of, you know, finding your place in the world and knowing Eve is struggling to know what she wants to do with her life. So I mean, it does deal with some topics, but it's just hilarious. She literally hits him with her car. That's literally how she gets hired at his B&B. That's their meet cute. I actually want to reread this soon and annotate it, because I didn't annotate it the first time that I read it. I've got my tabs ready to go soon. The TBR is a bit too long right now to be rereading, but one day. Oh my god, honorable mention, I also loved Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop. This is the perfect beach read. This follows Janelle and Rome. So Janelle's sister is getting married to her ex-boyfriend, but wait, she doesn't mind. She didn't love the guy, or she doesn't love the guy. She didn't have see a future with him, so she doesn't mind. However, everyone in her family, you know, her sister, her mum, her dad, they're all treating her like, it's okay if you're sad, or it's okay if you're not okay. And she's like, trust me, I'm fine. And Rome basically says, for this week that we're in Tulum, Mexico. This is why I say it's a good beach read, because it's set in Tulum, Mexico, and they do like tortoise, how do you say it? Turtle diving. They do so many fun things, you know, cycling in Tulum, and it just felt so vivid in my head. And he said to her, for the week while we're here leading up to the wedding, let me take away your stress. And it's very spicy, but it's so sweet. He does something for her. I'm not gonna ruin it for you, but he does something for her that all bookish girlies want done, okay? By our millionaire boyfriends in our heads. Now we're moving on to my most read genre, which is fantasy. So I have epic fantasy and I have more YA romantasy type of books. So let's start with epic. The Sword of Kaigan. This book will absolutely destroy you if you want a good cry. If war was to come to this country, they are the first point of call. They are where the enemy would land. So they train their whole lives to be the Sword of Kaigan. They train to be ready for war. However, they're living in peacetime and they've never seen a war, you know. So they're not really expecting what happens. Misaki's definitely one of my favorite female main characters. She's older, she's a mum. However, she was previously a vigilante, so she knows how to fight, but she hasn't done so in a long time. So to see her dust off her sword and get back in there to protect her family, it's just so empowering. I love this story, honestly, but it will hurt. You will sob, but I highly recommend. Next we have the Mistborn series. This is the first book, The Final Empire, but I believe they've renamed it to just Mistborn because there was a bit of confusion. We follow Vin, who is Mistborn, which is basically you can manipulate all of the metals. So the magic system in this world is about metals, ingesting them and then burning them within you to create power. Vin gets taken under the wing of Kelsiar, and Kelsiar is also a Mistborn, and he teaches her how to use her powers, but they're also planning to overthrow the Lord Ruler, who is basically the bad guy that won 1,000 years ago, and he's been ruling the empire terribly, and people are enslaved, people are starving, people are not doing good, so they're trying to overthrow him. And you get this nice little found family. I love that in every single book you fall in love with different characters and get to know them on a deeper level. So I can't wait to start, hopefully this year, The Way of Kings, which is the Stormlight Archive, the series that everyone screams about. Another amazing author that can get you hooked on characters. John Gwynne. This is The Shadow of the Gods, also known as the Bloodsworn Saga. It is a trilogy. All 3 books are out. The first book is good. It will get you invested in the world and the story. It's a Viking fantasy, but the second book is where it all goes down. The Hunger of the Gods is where I really got attached to the series and the characters. So we're following loads of characters in this series. You basically have 2 war bands. So we have the Battlegrim and we have the Bloodsworn. Oh my god, how could I forget that? We have the Bloodsworn. And then we're following Orca, who doesn't have a group, you know, she's just out to find her son who has been taken by people. I can't really say, it's so hard to talk about a series that you've completed because I'm not sure what's in this book and what's in the next book. Another amazing world, The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. Now this series is incomplete. There's only 2 out of 4 books out so far, but this series, I absolutely love both books. They're both 5 stars. I would hold them if I could. Hold on, there we go. Fires of Vengeance is also an amazing book. So in this story we're following Tao, who is on a revenge path. I'm not going to tell you why he wants revenge because I feel like it will spoil the first book. You can excuse what he's doing, you know, or I could anyway. Some people find him infuriating, but honestly, if someone did to me what was done to Tao, I probably would be on this revenge path too, you know, in a fantasy world, not in the real world. Even though this book is called The Rage of Dragons, dragons are very minimal in this story. If anything, there's a lot of demons and a lot of underworld. And last but not least, for epic fantasy, we have Of Blood and Fire by Ryan Carhill. This is the first book in the Bound and the Broken series, but this is literally just a setup book, but it's the most fast-paced, action-packed setup book you're ever going to experience. And in this, we watch a dragon hatch, we watch the dragon take its first flight, and you get very attached to Valeris. It is like a chosen one trope. So Kaelin is just from a small village, you know, he has his two friends, he has his mom, his dad, his sister, he's just living his life, and then his dad sends him on an errand to another village to get something or sell something, trade something like that. But while he's there, he gets into big trouble, and that just leads him on this big journey. This is another one that is a massive cast of characters, so many to keep track of, and they all have their different storylines going on, so it's hard to grasp, especially because the second book is like, I don't have it upstairs right now, but this is the third book, which is over 1,000 pages long. There's so much to keep track of, but if you're invested in the story, you will just, it just clicks, do you know what I mean? There were some chapters when it started, I was like, who's that again? And then when it clicks, you're back in, you know? So once again, if you are a fan of epic fantasy, chosen one trope, dragons, elves, dwarfs, and a big cast of characters, I highly recommend checking out the Bound and the Broken series. So now that we've got the big epic fantasies out of the way, let's move on to fantasies that are a little bit more YA and romantasy, a little bit lighter on the fantasy aspect. So first I have Divine Rivals. I absolutely love this duology. I have multiple copies of it. You probably I can't be bothered to point it out on my bookshelf, but I have all of the special editions. It definitely feels more like a historical fiction, romance, fantasy. The fantasy aspects are not as prevalent aside from the typewriters being a little bit magical, you know? But in this story, we're following Roman and Iris, who are rivals at work. They're both journalists and they're both fighting for the same job. However, Iris's brother is fighting in the war and she hasn't heard from him in a long time, so she decides to take herself to be a journalist at the front lines instead. And I just found the letters in this so loving and like romantic and tender, and I just thought it was such a good way to build the romance between the two characters, and I love that she managed to carry that throughout the whole duology because it is what I really enjoyed in this story. Next I have Six of Crows. Now I read this so long ago, so I barely remember plot, like a lot of plot points, but I do remember how this book made me feel, and I love the found family in this. Kaz and Inej have my heart forever. Like those two, it's not boom in your face romance, but it's like read between the lines. Kaz is obsessed with her and I absolutely love that for him. I love that for them, and I love that she's like a stabby queen. I love it. But I remember in this book they're doing a heist. I can't remember why, the details are going foggy now because I probably read this in like 2021, which is bloody 4 years ago now. Wow, maybe it's time for a reread. But I do remember loving Kaz. He's like the ultimate mastermind. Just when you think things are going wrong, he has a plan. I can't believe it, but this is my only romantasy that I've pulled out today. There are definitely others that I love. Like I know I love The Serpent and the Wings of Night. Is that all? Damn, do I really love romantasy? Sometimes I question myself because clearly I don't have any favourites. A lot of romantasy that I read are like 3.5, 4 stars. You know, they're good, fun, they did what they needed to do when I read it, but it's very rare that I give a romantasy 5 stars, which is concerning. Anyways, one of my favourite romantasies is Spark of the Everflame. This is the second book, Glow of the Everflame, which is what solidified my love for this series. I can't really tell you why because it is the second book in the series, but the found family in here, the romance, everything was just amazing. Now the main character, I've realised this about me, I can overlook a annoying female main character if I love everything else about the world and the plot and the other characters. I can overlook her being annoying. Some people can't. DM is quite annoying because she doesn't listen. She's very headstrong and feels like she knows everything when she definitely doesn't and should take advice from people around her. But if you can overlook that, my Prince Luther, he is everything. Next is Babel. Now this one I probably read 2 years ago, so it's been a while. It's a little bit foggy on the details, but I remember how it made me feel. Never forget a feeling. And I just remember being astounded. My flabber was gassed. It was everything. I mean, it was very heavy textbook sometimes because it deals with translation and language and this meaning this in this language, but it can never truly be translated because it doesn't have an equivalent in this language. And it is dark academia, so they are in a classroom, they are learning, so it does read a little bit like a textbook sometimes. The actual deeper message of, you know, colonization and taking people from their countries to work for your country against their own country. Translation is an act of, what did they say? Betrayal. I've got the special edition right here. I don't know if you can see. Translation is always an act of betrayal. You can never truly stay faithful to what the original language is trying to say. And I've realized this in my own life because my husband actually speaks Swahili, and sometimes when we're at his mum's house or whatever, they'll be saying something and I'm like, what did they say? And he's like, I don't know how to say it in English. You know, there's just some things that only make sense in that language and in that culture. Masterpiece, absolute masterpiece, and I am so excited for R.F. Kuang's next book, Catabasis. And the last two books are also fantasy. So we have Blood Scion. This one, I've been waiting for the second book to come out forever. Like, it's not even a joke. At this point, 2022. Why does it feel so much longer than that? I'll give you another year. If it doesn't come out this year. 15-year-old Sloane can incinerate an enemy at will. She is a scion, a descendant of the ancient Orisha gods, but under the brutal rule of the Lucis, her identity means her death. Her mother knew as much. She disappeared trying to hide Sloane's truth. That's it, I remember. So she has power. However, the colonizers that have taken over her country have said power is not allowed. Anyone with magic is going to be taken out. So she has been in hiding. Her mum has gone missing, however, and she gets drafted into the military for the Lucis, who are the now rulers of this country. If you turn down the draft or you don't turn up for the draft, they hunt you down, you get taken out. So she goes in, but also she feels like the military are responsible for her mum's disappearance. So she goes in hoping to find answers about what happened to her mum. But while she's there, of course, she's trying to hide her magic. She finds some friends who've got a little found family going on, but they also they send them out on missions to hunt down kids with magic, which is so sad. They drag the kid from, I'm so bad at not spoiling things. It's annoying. Shut up, Tammi. Okay, last but not least for fantasy, The Blood Trials. I absolutely love this. This is adult, but it does read very kind of new adult. Aside from all of the gruesome, gory stuff that happens, I feel like it reads pretty easy, but it is very brutal. Maybe that's why it's adult. So in this world, we are following, what is her name now? Ekenna. How can I forget Ekenna? Yeah, so we're following Ekenna, whose grandfather has been killed. He was in a high position in the military, and she feels like the higher ups had something to do with it. So she tries to join the military as well. She has to go through these trials. Blood trials. They are very brutal, very deadly. It's not just survive the trial, but survive each other. Of course, there's a good old bully in this book who's out to get Ekenna, and she's also a minority in this world, so they do call her a slur. I can't remember what it is, but she's basically discriminated against for being black in this world. But I absolutely love the trials in this book. It kept me on the edge of my seat. I was intrigued, I was invested, and I really enjoyed it. However, the second book, I felt like it was too much. She finds something out in this book, which means the next book had to be, you know, taking on this issue. But then there was just another issue that had to be handled, and handling both issues in one book, it just felt like boom, 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 boom. You know, I feel like it needed another book to handle the third issue so that we could really get time with it. The author has said that the publisher would only give her a duology for this, whereas the story needed a trilogy. She needed space and time to grow. Unfortunately, she didn't get that. So the second book, I think I gave 3 stars. It was just so, now we're going here, did this, going here, gonna do that, gonna do that. And it was just like, whoa, can we get time with the characters, please? Can we let things sink in, let things marinate? But I guess there was no time, but I still highly recommend this book anyway. And last but not least, we're gonna finish off with a couple lit fic faves. Now, this is not a genre that I read very often, but when I do find myself in love with it. Like, I am pretty sucked into these stories. So first, this one, I don't think, does it classify it as a lit fic? I guess it would be more fantasy because it's Greek mythology. This is 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes, and this follows all of the women's stories from the Trojan War. So we have, I don't even remember all their names right now, but nearly every chapter is a different character. Oh yes, we also have chapters from the female gods in here as well, like Aphrodite. Is it Aphrodite? Aphrodite? Hera, Athene. I find it so hard to say Greek mythology names. We have the Trojan women, Penelope, who was the wife of Odysseus. There's so many female POVs in here from all of the women that were either married to, tortured by the men in the Trojan War. Very well written. There's a quote in here that I absolutely love. Let me try and remember it. It was something like, after a war was lost, the men lost their lives, but the women lost everything else. And you basically just watch them lose everything but their lives in this. They lose their freedoms, their kids, their homes. They keep their lives, but what life do you have left if you've lost your kids and your home and your freedom, you know? Coming back into reality a little bit, we have A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. Mariam is only 15 when she's sent to Kabul to marry Rashid. Nearly 2 decades later, a friendship grows between Mariam and a local teenager, Laila, as strong as the ties between mother and daughter. When the Taliban take over, life becomes a desperate struggle against starvation, brutality, and fear. Yet love can move a person to act in unexpected ways and lead them to overcome the most daunting obstacles with a startling heroism. I remember how this book made me feel, and I absolutely sobbed. I fell in love with these characters. I felt so sorry for these characters. They are women going through it because of men, as usual. Mariam's story is heartbreaking. Once again, she's married when she's only 15 to some old man that she does not like, but her family basically hand her over. It's infuriating. So many times I wanted to just tell Mariam, stand up, queen. He's just a guy. Hit him with your car. No, but it was because they're under Taliban rule, women weren't allowed to be seen outside without, you know, full covering. Women weren't allowed to drive. So she was very much underneath her husband's thumb, and there was nothing much that she can do about it. And last but not least, All the Lonely People. Now this book I can yap about forever. It felt like I was reading a book about my granddad. I always see people talking about a man called Ove. I haven't read it, but the way people describe that, I would describe this the same, but with a black main character. This follows our guy, what's his name? Hubert, of course. He is a Jamaican who came over during the Windrush era to work in England for a better life, all of that good stuff. He meets his wife, what he was going through, the discrimination and racism he faced, especially dating his white wife. And then we follow present timeline where his wife unfortunately has passed away and his daughter has moved to Australia, I believe, somewhere far anyway. But she calls him weekly, checks in on him, and he's telling her all of this amazing, you know, he's going to bowling with his friends, he's, you know, going for coffee with his friends, he's hyping up his life when he's really doing none of that. He doesn't speak to anyone. He has fallen out of contact with all of his friends. He lives a lonely life, you know. So his daughter calls him one day and says, Dad, I'm coming to visit. I can't wait to meet all of these, you know, amazing friends you've told me about. I definitely want to come bowling with you and Susie or whoever he's made up. And he's like, damn. So now he goes back into the world to try and find some friends before his daughter comes over. And it's just so wholesome, so sweet of him trying to find friends. I can't talk about it without getting emotional. It's very heartbreaking as well. This is just one of those books that will stay with me forever, and I can't recommend it enough. Those are all of my favorite 6-star all-time favorite books. So if any of these books are your favorite, you know you're in the right place because we have the same reading taste. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope you will subscribe. I will see you soon for another video.